The Battle of Bighorn was a pivotal and controversial event that shaped the fate of the American West. On June 25, 1876, near the Little Bighorn River in Montana Territory, a fierce and bloody clash occurred between the 7th Cavalry of the United States Army, led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, and a coalition of Native American tribes, led by several renowned war leaders, including Crazy Horse and Chief Gall. The Native Americans, who were mostly Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho, fought to defend their lands and way of life from the encroaching white settlers and soldiers. The battle resulted in a stunning defeat for Custer and his men, who were outnumbered and outmaneuvered by the Native Americans. The battle sparked outrage and controversy in the United States and became a symbol of Native American resistance and pride. The conflict that erupted in the Battle of the Little Bighorn had its roots in the discovery of gold in the Black Hills, a region that was sacred to many Native American tribes in 1874. This sparked a gold rush that attracted thousands of white settlers and miners who violated the treaties that the U.S. government had signed with the tribes, promising to respect their sovereignty and rights. The government then tried to force the tribes to give up their lands and move to reservations, but many of them resisted and formed an alliance to defend their ancestral territories. The battle was the showdown between these two opposing forces, and it resulted in a devastating defeat for the U.S. Army. The 7th Cavalry, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, was one of several units involved in a coordinated military campaign that sought to pacify the resistance of the Native American tribes in the Great Plains and compel them to surrender their lands and move to reservations. Custer, a charismatic and daring officer who had earned fame and glory for his actions during the Civil War and the Indian Wars, was hungry for more success and recognition that would boost his prestige and career prospects. He had received unclear and contradictory reports about the size and location of the enemy camp, which was composed of several allied tribes led by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. Instead of waiting for reinforcements from other units or conducting a careful scouting of the terrain and the enemy's strength, he decided to launch a surprise attack with his 600 men, hoping to catch the enemy off guard and achieve a swift and decisive victory. Custer split his force of 600 soldiers into 3 smaller units, each led by a different officer: himself, Major Marcus Reno, and Captain Frederick Benteen. His strategy was to attack the Native American village from multiple directions at once, hoping to catch them off guard and overwhelm them. However, his plan backfired as he faced fierce opposition and a much larger enemy force than he anticipated. Reno's unit was the first to encounter the Native Americans, but they were quickly driven back and had to take cover on a nearby hill. Benteen's unit, which was supposed to assist Custer's assault, never got a clear instruction from Custer, and instead decided to join Reno on the hill. Custer's unit moved toward the north end of the village, where he thought he would find vulnerable women and children escaping, but instead, he met hundreds of warriors who were prepared for combat. The exact sequence of events that led to the destruction of Custer's battalion remains a matter of debate and speculation, as none of his soldiers survived the battle. According to the most commonly accepted account, based on the testimony of Native American witnesses and archaeological evidence, Custer's troops faced a vastly outnumbered and outgunned enemy who surrounded them on a hilltop later named Last Stand Hill. There, Custer and his men made a final, heroic resistance, firing their rifles and pistols until they ran out of ammunition or were killed by the relentless onslaught of arrows and bullets. Some alternative theories have been proposed by some historians who suggest that Custer may have attempted to escape the trap and reach the nearby river, where he hoped to find reinforcements or a way out. However, he was intercepted and slain by a group of warriors, along with some of his followers. Another possibility is that Custer, realizing the hopelessness of his situation, chose to end his own life rather than fall into the hands of his adversaries, who would have tortured or mutilated him. These scenarios, however, are not supported by conclusive evidence or consensus among scholars. The conflict between the U.S. Army and the Native American coalition of Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes reached a climax on June 25, 1876, when Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer led his 7th Cavalry Regiment into a valley near the Little Bighorn River in Montana. Custer had underestimated the size and strength of the Native American forces, which numbered around 2,000 warriors. He divided his men into 3 battalions, one of which he commanded. He attacked the largest Native American encampment from the east, while Major Marcus Reno and Captain Frederick Benteen attacked from the south and north, respectively. However, the Native Americans quickly mounted a fierce counterattack, overwhelming Custer's battalion and forcing Reno and Benteen to retreat to defensive positions on high ground. The battle lasted for about an hour, until the arrival of additional U.S. troops under General Alfred Terry and Colonel John Gibbon, who had been delayed by poor communication and coordination. The Native Americans withdrew from the field, leaving behind more than 200 dead U.S. soldiers, including Custer and all of his immediate family members who had accompanied him. The Native American casualties were estimated at between 36 and 300. The battle became known as the Battle of the Little Bighorn, or Custer's Last Stand, making the most decisive Native American victory in the Great Sioux War of 1876-77. The Battle of Bighorn was a historic event that marked a rare and decisive victory for the Native Americans over the U.S. Army, who had been invading and occupying their lands for decades. The battle, which took place on June 25, 1876, near the Little Bighorn River in Montana, pitted the combined forces of the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes against the 7th Cavalry Regiment of the U.S. Army, led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. The Native Americans, who vastly outnumbered and outmaneuvered the U.S. soldiers, inflicted a crushing defeat on Custer's troops, killing more than 250 of them, including Custer himself. The battle was a shocking and humiliating blow to the U.S. Army and a source of outrage and dismay for the American public, who had been fed a narrative of easy and righteous conquest over the savages by the government and the media. The battle also had profound consequences for the Native Americans, as it provoked a fierce and ruthless response from the U.S. government, who intensified their efforts to exterminate and assimilate the remaining tribes. Within a year of the battle, most of the Native Americans who had fought at Bighorn had surrendered or been relocated to reservations, where they faced poverty, disease, and cultural erosion. The Battle of Bighorn has transcended its historical reality and become a myth that has influenced countless forms of artistic and cultural expression, from literature and cinema to music and visual arts. It has been portrayed and reimagined from different angles and motives, often with little respect for the historical facts or the cultural diversity of the participants. It has been invoked as a metaphor for courage or recklessness, defiance or domination, liberty or annihilation. It remains one of the most disputed and captivating events in American history.